we just executed on the right times. Thank God they missed that last shot because we messed up on that switch a little bit. I was kind of late, but I'm just happy we was able to go out there and get a win against a good team.
Were you surprised he missed that?
I mean, I seen him make a lot of shots in that time here. So, if he gets it off, it's also always scary that he's gonna make it. He got that little bit of room, and it's a little bit of I was nervous a little bit. I ain't gonna lie.
This is Delano Banton, and you're listening to The Briefcase with Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blazer fans, and welcome to The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino, episode 127 of The Briefcase. I'm your host, Casey Holdahl, and the Portland Trail Blazers are out on a 5-game road trip to start 2025. Started out okay with a loss to the Lakers, but then got even better on Saturday with a victory versus Damian Lillard and the Milwaukee Bucks. So we'll talk about the game versus the Lakers, we'll talk about the game versus Dame and the Bucks, and we'll hear from Toumani Camara, a shortened interview. It was supposed to be longer, but technology as it is doesn't always allow for such things. On this edition of The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Well, the Trailblazers getting their 2025 off to a decent start. Weren't able to get the victory versus the Lakers, ended up losing 114-106 in Los Angeles at Crypto.com Arena, or whatever they're calling it these days. A pretty good game for the Trailblazers. They actually came out and had a really good first quarter, and that's been a theme for the Trailblazers as of late. Previously, they were a team that got off to really poor starts and then really had to kind of work just to get the game closer by the half or even by the third quarter or the fourth quarter. But lately, they've actually been coming out and playing some really good offensive basketball to start out games, which has been a really nice thing to see. And we saw that in the game versus the Lakers. The Blazers get out to a 31 point, or they scored 31 points, I should say, in the first quarter on 57% shooting from the field and go up by as many as 8 points in the first quarter, though they do end up taking a 4-point lead into the second quarter. And, that's the NBA. You're going to get up early sometimes, and the other team is usually going to rally back, particularly a team with LeBron James, who once again just had a phenomenal game versus the Trailblazers, as he has had his entire career. I think they showed a graphic that LeBron's like 3 of his 4 highest averaging between like points and assists or rebounds, I think, have all come against the Trailblazers average throughout his career. Which, I always kind of attribute to the Nike angle being in Portland as well. But LeBron's been tough on a lot of folks in the league, and Trailblazers are definitely one of those teams. So Blazers not able to really keep it up in the second quarter, which is also something we've seen too. I think in some respects, maybe the Blazers are maybe surprising some teams a little bit in the first quarter. And once they kind of are like, all right, maybe we're going to have to actually play tonight, things, I wouldn't say flip necessarily, but they just become more difficult for the Trailblazers. And also too, they're missing a couple players right now. Particularly Jeremy Grant. So when they're getting into their secondary rotations, just different players out there, guys who haven't maybe played as much. So I want to say too, I mentioned this during the Bucks game. Kris Murray has been phenomenal lately. A guy who has really done a great job of staying ready. And, he's kind of been in and out of the lineup, and it seems like, particularly now that Jeremy Grant's been out for a couple games, his numbers have ticked up a bit, his minutes, I should say. And, every time he goes out there, like, he just seems like he has an impact, and he did in the Bucks game, did in the Lakers game as well. And then it's not like huge things. He's not going out there and setting the court on fire or anything, but just playing very solid basketball on both ends. And when you're a player who's not necessarily getting a lot of minutes or even kind of consistent minutes all the time, that can be a tough thing to do. So the fact that Kris has been able to do that in his second season, I think you really have to give him credit for, because again, that's not easy. And you talk to players, one of the things they always talk about in terms of minutes is like just wanting to know when they're generally going to be going in games. And, for a guy like Kris, I don't know that he necessarily is on the level where he knows every single night what minutes he's going to get and when those minutes are going to come. But he does know what's going to be expected of him when he gets out there. And he's done a great job of making the case for more minutes, because he's just going out there and really, really having a nice impact on games, even in the role that he's in. So I think that's been really great for Kris, and it's been great for the Trailblazers, and a guy who I would expect to probably get more minutes as the season goes on, as he did his rookie season as well. So I think that, he's played a caliber of basketball to where he's a guy where I think you start trying to figure out how you can get him in the games a little bit more. But back specifically to the Laker game, Lakers end up outscoring the Blazers by 13 in the second half to take a 9-point lead, 13 points in the second quarter to take a 9-point lead into the second half. Lakers go up by 13 in the third quarter, then 15 in the fourth quarter. And at that point, it looks like they're probably going to pull away. But but the Blazers did a really nice job of hanging tough. And, that's one of the things that Chauncey's talked about is not letting go of the cord. And the Blazers didn't do that in the game versus the Lakers and actually kind of put themselves in a position to almost get the win by going with a small lineup that really did a good job. Um, Chauncey basically countered kind of what the Lakers were doing. No Anthony Davis in that game, so they didn't have a ton of big men out there either. So the Blazers go Ant, Scoot, Shaedon, Toumani, and Deni, and they played almost the entire fourth quarter together, and were really good. They got the game down to I think 3 points with 2.5 minutes to play. LeBron though was he always had an answer every time the Blazers seemed like they might be able to get over the top. I think he ended up going 7 of 10 from three. And he was basically, he transitioning. I wouldn't say he's transitioning more to a 3-point shooter, but it's just something he's doing more as he's gotten older, and he's still great at it. LeBron in that game was definitely the reason the Lakers were able to get that one. But again, a pretty good game for the Blazers. Ended up losing by 8 points. I think it was down to like I mentioned it was three at 2:30, and I think it was like four with like under a minute to play. So again, a chance if they had gotten a few things to go their way, they had a couple calls that didn't break their way. That's not the reason why they lost, but there were definitely if they could have gotten a break, that feels like a game that maybe they could have stole in Los Angeles, but was not the case. And again, LeBron just wasn't going to allow it. So in that one, Anfernee Simons, 23 points on 80-17 shooting from the field, 4 of 9 shooting from three to go with 5 assists and 3 rebounds and 2 steals in 36 minutes. Deni Avdija, who's been doing again, a great job since entering the starting lineup. And I think we're really kind of starting to see the best that Deni has on both sides of the ball. And a guy who is, I mean, at this point, he's for me, he's the MVP of the season for the Trailblazers thus far. Deni with 19 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal in 36 minutes. Also, happy birthday to Deni, by the way. Shaedon Sharpe, 19 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 steal in 36 minutes. Toumani Camara, 18 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1 block in 39 minutes. Toumani, another guy, too, who we're going to hear from here in a minute, has really, I feel like, has stepped his game up as of late. And that combination of Deni and Toumani in that starting lineup, like with that size and toughness, and particularly kind of the positionality, the ability to switch a lot of positions between those two guys. I think that's maybe one of the reasons why they've been getting out to good starts lately is because both those guys are really bringing a level of intensity and focus and physicality to that starting lineup that I think is really paying dividends for this team right now. And Scoot Henderson, a nice game for Scoot, 12 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, 1 block, 1 steal in 32 minutes. I thought Scoot, particularly in the fourth quarter, did a great job defensively in that game versus the Lakers. With Deni being the biggest guy out there and LeBron being on the court as well, everyone basically having to take turns trying to body up LeBron. Scoot did a great job of that. There were multiple times where, our seats at Staples Center are kind of very close to the floor and kind of diagonal to the Trailblazers bench. And so we really got a good up close view of Scoot in that fourth quarter fighting LeBron and kind of trying to body him up and keep him from getting to his spots. And I thought he did a really nice job of that. But LeBron is LeBron, ended up with 38 points on 12 of 25 shooting from the field, 7 to 10 shooting from three, as I mentioned. Max Christie also had 28 points. That was a big difference in that game as well. So a game that, Blazers played well. And again, one of those where you would hope they'd be able to get that victory. But you're playing on the road versus a Lakers team, and the Blazers hadn't had a whole lot of success on the road as of late. So that one's always going to be a tough game, but you really like the way that they comported themselves. You like the way that they played, and you felt good that again in the fourth quarter when it seemed like the Lakers were going to pull away, the Blazers didn't allow them to do that. And granted, a loss is still a loss, but when you're a young team, when you're trying to build habits, when you're trying to build a culture, it's important to do things like staying close in games, particularly on the road against good teams. And so for the Blazers to be able to do that and to make it a game all the way into the fourth quarter, again, you like to get a win, but I think, long term going forward, those are the kind of things that when you're looking at development and looking at, taking some of the positives out of some of these losses, I think that small lineup, they kind of found something there that I think they could probably use going forward if they're playing other teams who are going a bit smaller as well, which I feel like is happening more and more lately. So I think that works. And then just the idea that like, hey guys, we might not win this game, but there is a way we need to conduct ourselves, a way we need to compete, even if we're not going to get the W. And I think we absolutely saw that in the Laker game, which, it's just another opportunity to go out there and and build upon something, and it puts you in a good place going into your next games, which we can talk about now. Obviously, the Blazers staying in Los Angeles on, I guess, Friday night, flying out to Milwaukee on no, basically we stayed the night in Los Angeles, flew out the next day to Milwaukee, had a practice at Marquette in Milwaukee. A very good practice. We practiced once the team got in, and that's something we're doing more and more lately. I think they used to do a little bit more. Instead of having to shoot around the day of the game, particularly when you're going east and you're losing a couple hours, usually the idea is like we're probably better off, like getting the rest than going to the gym, being in the gym for an hour, coming back to the hotel, being there for a couple hours and then heading right back out to the game. So instead of doing that, they're having practices once they arrive. And that's what we did in Milwaukee. I believe that's what we're going to do once we get to New Orleans as well. And a very good practice in Milwaukee. I felt like it was a good spirit. Chauncey had talked after the game versus the Bucks that, they kind of addressed some of the things that they felt like have been lacking as of late. We get on the road too. It gets a chance to kind of get the team together and get the team a little bit focused up, more so than when you're at home, particularly during the holidays, because, you got family, you got friends, you got responsibilities. When you're on the road, it's like basically your responsibility is to get to the bus and get to the game and perform. And so, it does afford the team an opportunity to kind of drill down on some things a little bit, I think, and really kind of get focused and emphasize some of the team elements that you'd like to see happen. So they ended up having a great practice in Milwaukee, which ended up being a great game for the Trailblazers. Blazers win the game versus Damian Lillard and the Bucks 105-102 in Milwaukee on Saturday night. So after that practice, Blazers come out and have a great first half versus the Bucks. Both Toumani and Deni, again, having great first halves, 12 points in the first half and 6 rebounds for Deni, 13 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists for Toumani in the first half. And the Blazers came out and looked like, they were the more aggressive team. And, you kind of assumed at some point in time that Giannis was going to do what he typically does. But, I noticed he missed a lot of buckets at the rim that I'm really accustomed to him making, particularly against the Trailblazers. So the Blazers were able to do enough to mitigate Giannis. Dame, I think went 5 of 15, didn't have his best game though. In the fourth quarter, it looked like he was going to maybe take that one over. But Anfernee Simons ended up kind of being the one who ended up getting it done in the fourth quarter, the student becoming the teacher, as it were. I believe the Blazers are 2-1 versus the Bucks now with Dame on the team, and I think actually Ant is 2-0. I don't think he played in the second game last season. So he's had some success there. A guy who's obviously very accustomed to Dame's game and vice versa. Dame even said after the game, I went to the Bucks locker room that seeing Ant play out there is kind of like seeing himself. When he was a bit younger. Kind of the pace that he plays with, kind of some of the moves that he uses. A lot of that stuff really kind of similar to Dame and CJ. And so the Blazers able to stick with that one. And kind of push as the game goes forward. Someone said the Bucks kind of jumped on them in the third quarter, but they definitely kind of settled in the third quarter, end up taking a 1-point lead into the fourth quarter. And again, it's one of those, particularly when you're on the road, and the Blazers, a team that, had gone well over a month without a road win. And part of that was because they hardly played on the road during the month of December. But another part of it is that, it's hard to get wins on the road, particularly when you're a young team. And the Blazers hadn't had a whole lot of success doing that as of late. So they go into the third quarter trailing 76-75, which, one, I mean, you feel great about that. I mean, it's a 1-point game. And end up getting the plays they need to make in order to win that game, particularly Anfernee Simons, getting 12 points in the fourth quarter, going 1 of 4 from the 3-point line, but 5 of 5 from the free throw line. One of those free throws, the 2-minute report said, he got fouled by Bobby Portis going to the rim for the go-ahead bucket. Actually, it was a bucket and one. And NBA comes out today in the 2-minute report and says that that shouldn't have been called a foul and that Bobby Portis just had incidental body contact. You watch the replay. It's a fair amount of contact. That's definitely not a play that during the course of the game. I didn't feel like anyone was really like, oh boy, how could they possibly call that? Like that seemed like a pretty reasonable foul to me. But on review, the NBA decided that it wasn't. But the Bucks didn't review that one. So Ant gets that and one, and then gets a couple free throws to finish off the game, and the Blazers end up pulling that one out. Again, a very solid game for the Trailblazers. I think going against Dame gives you a little bit of extra juice, particularly for Anfernee. Obviously, not a whole lot of guys on the team from when Dame was on the team, Ant and Shaden being kind of two of the main guys. but really, I think that's a game that they know that that I think they would really like to win because, just when you have a guy who's been so important to a franchise who's not on the team anymore, I think as the players who are on that team, you're like, hey, we want you guys to we're on the team. Like we want you should be cheering for us in this one. And so it was really great to see them go out and get that victory. And again, a game where the Blazers, they go down third quarter and on the road, you could very easily see them kind of the other team pulling away. The Bucks have been struggling as of late. They won the NBA Cup, but really have not looked good since then. Not sure exactly what's going on there, but probably a few things to figure out if they want to have a chance to really compete in the East this year. Which you got the Celtics and the Cavs, who are both just beating the tar out of teams. So that's going to be a tough road to hoe for the Bucks, particularly after losing that game 105-102 to the Trailblazers. 19 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals for Deni. Again, just playing really good basketball right now. 15 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal for Toumani Camara. DeAndre Ayton, who I thought was really good in that game, and Chauncey kind of singled him out for praise after the game. Did a really good job, as Chauncey mentioned, setting screens and didn't necessarily get paid off for it because the Bucks, do a pretty good job of limiting what your big man is going to do. Between Giannis and Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez, they have quite a few bodies down there. But really nice game for DeAndre. 10 points, 13 rebounds, and a block for DeAndre Ayton in 34 minutes. 16 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists for Shaedon Sharpe, who came out and had a pretty good start, kind of tailed off as the game went on, but still kind of did exactly what he needed to do. And particularly when you got Ant going, Shaedon's smart enough to understand that, like, hey, let's defer to Ant here a little bit. And, Ant really carried the day for the Trailblazers, 28 points, 8 assists, 3 rebounds for the Trailblazers in 40 plus minutes, going 9 of 20 from the field, 5 of 12 from 3, and 5 of 5 from the free throw line. And I think at least 3 of those free throws, I think, were in the last minute or in crunch time, at least in the fourth quarter, which those are the ones you're definitely going to need to get. So, and also, again, another nice game for Scoot, 9 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists in 23 minutes. As I mentioned, Kris Murray playing 20 minutes in that game, 4 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, and again, just looked like he was ready to perform right off the gate. And Donovan Clingan getting 13 minutes in that, actually almost 14 minutes in that game, 4 points, 5 rebounds for Donovan Clingan. Giannis with 31 points, 11 rebounds. Dame with 16 points, 6 assists, but just on 5 of 15 shooting. 21 points for AJ Green, who was 7 of 13 from the field. Actually, every single shot he took with a 3-pointer. AJ Green, they actually took one of those off the board, too. They said he stepped out of bounds. I think they were saying, too, that not that he was out of bounds when he took the shot, but I think what they were saying when they reviewed it and then took it off the board was that he had stepped out of bounds and then came and then got the shot. And I think maybe he didn't reestablish himself in bounds. The way that they worded it in the arena sounded to me less like he had stepped out of bounds and more like maybe he had done the thing where, again, if you go out of bounds, you have to kind of like get back in bounds and like be established first. Either way, they took 3 points off the board, which ended up being important since the Blazers ended up winning that game by 3. And one of their better wins of the season, as I mentioned, the first win of 2025, their first road win in, I think, since they beat the Rockets in that second game in Houston. And I think that was back in November. So great to see the Blazers get a road victory. Now 1-1 on this road trip, 1-1 in 2025, going into games versus the Pistons, Pelicans, and Mavs to wrap up this trip. So, I think you felt pretty good about where the Blazers are at, where they are to start 2025. As I mentioned, it seems like they've got a little bit of something going with Deni in that starting lineup. I'll be curious once Jeremy Grant comes back how they decide to play that. Denny's been playing a lot of minutes anyways, so and Chauncey even mentioned that in pregame versus the Bucks that they kind of start making moves in that lineup pretty early on in the game. So even if you don't start, a guy like Denny's probably going to get in the game within the first 5-6 minutes. But it does seem like they've kind of found something there. And again, the combination of Deni and Toumani, I think has really been a dynamic kind of forward lineup for the Trailblazers. And so it'll be curious to see if they're able to retain that once Jeremy does come back. It's a good problem to have, though. I mean, you obviously want to get those guys back out there, and it'd be nice to get Jeremy out there again. He's been out with that face contusion for a couple games now. going to try to get an update on what's going on there because I've had a couple people ask at this point. And it also looks like Matisse Thybulle might be getting close to coming back as well. I noticed he was on the court going through a workout prior to the Bucks game, and that was a situation where I think that Matisse was really close to coming back. And then on that road trip, and I think actually maybe even in Houston, he had done something to that ankle and kind of that ankle became the issue after it was something else. So I know with Matisse too, they really want to make sure that he's healthy and ready to go before they put him back out there, particularly when he kind of re-aggravated the injury. Actually, I don't know if it's a re-aggravation. I think it was a different injury. But my assumption at this point is that Matisse is getting close to coming back, which would be great if they were able to have the whole team out there. Particularly defensively too. That just gives you so much length, so many smart defenders between Matisse and Deni and Toumani that I mean I think that would really be a potent rotation for the Trailblazers defensively and offensively as well, but really more defensively. So it'd be great if he's able to get back. I don't know if this road trip is likely, but he is on the trip. So, maybe it's a possibility, but that's something I'll try to get you an update on here soon. Well, the Trailblazers getting one of their best wins to start 2025 this season with that win versus the Bucks. And you can get some wins at Spirit Mountain Casino, which features close to 2,000 of the latest slots, including fan favorites like Buffalo, Cleopatra, and Zeus. Whether you're into traditional slots or progressive jackpots, Spirit Mountain Casino is here to elevate your game. Blazers getting their first win of 2025. Head on to Spirit Mountain Casino in Grand Ronde on Highway 18. Get your first wins of 2025 as well. Spirit Mountain Casino, elevate your game. However, I guess I should say if you bet on the Trailblazers to beat the Bucks, you have already had one win in 2025. Trailblazers now 17-16-1 versus the spread this season after going 1-2 in their last 3 games. They were 7-point dogs to the 76ers and lost by 22. Also 7-point dogs to the Lakers and lost by 8. That's a close one on that. But they were at 11.5-point dogs to the Bucks and ended up winning that game by 3. So if you were someone that did bet on the Trailblazers in that one, at least to keep it closer than that, 11.5 was pretty big spread, particularly for a Bucks team that is, again, not playing especially well right now and just lost to the Nets. I hope you got that one because that'd be a nice little take home for you. Also, if you bet the over on the Trailblazers season projection, you're also feeling pretty good right now as well. Trailblazers have won 3 of their last 5 and are now 52% of the way to hitting the over on their season win projection of 22.5 wins after 41% of the season. So as I mentioned, Trailblazers now over half the way to hitting their season projection after 41% of the season, which is pretty good. And they're going in some games here. The Pistons have been much better this season, but a team that conceivably Portland could win, and I don't think anyone would be surprised by that. Going to play the Pelicans in New Orleans yet again, a team that the Blazers had success against this season. I think they've won 2 games versus the Pelicans this year. The Pelicans below the Trailblazers in the Western Conference standings. So a chance to get a couple more wins here on this trip. And then you have the Mavericks. You're playing on the second half of back-to-back. That's going to be a tough one. Not sure if Luka is going to be back for that game or not. But either way, the Trailblazers are ahead of schedule in terms of that season over, which is pretty cool. It's good to see. And, as of right now, they're a little better than 500 versus the spread. Also good to see. All right, before we wrap up this edition of the Briefcase, I want to hear from Toumani Camara, who I talked to after practice in Milwaukee a few days ago. I actually talked to him after the win, after the Trailblazers game, of course, the Trailblazers game, after the win versus the Bucks on Saturday night. Unfortunately, though, I guess there's some kind of known defect where sometimes a voice memo will record and you'll be able to see the waveform of it, but you won't actually be able to play it or transfer it. That is what has happened to the second part of my Toumani Camara interview. So that's a bit of a bummer because we talked about, last season and then when he broke his rib and lacerated his kidney, kind of what happened there, his thoughts on that. Obviously got a chance to talk to him about the win versus the Bucks. Toumani Camara, actually, I should go back to this too. Toumani really great in that game, particularly late in the fourth quarter covering Dame, forced a turnover late, forced a really tough 3-point shot that obviously did not go down for Dame, and obviously a guy who has hit those shots over and over and over again in his career. Toumani Camara doing a fantastic job of defense in that game. Forced that turnover. Dame, was going down. They thought he was going to raise up. He ends up passing the ball out to Bobby Portis in the corner. But Bobby Portis also thought Dame was going to end up taking the shot, so he was crashing the glass. Dame throws the ball out of bounds, turnover Trailblazers. And I think that's the possession, where Ant got the N1. So either way, a fantastic game for Toumani, and really just showing his growth throughout the season and throughout his time in the NBA. I really think, too, that Toumani's a guy who, the Blazers, the record being what it is, it's hard to kind of get personal accolades when you're on a team that's not winning a ton of games. But man, Toumani sure looks to me like one of the better defensive players in the NBA right now in his second season. Leading the NBA in charges, as we talked about over and over and over again, and got two more, I believe, in the game versus the Bucks. Forced that turnover, forced it a really tough contested shot that on review, they didn't end up reviewing it obviously in the game, but one of those shots where guy gets a little bit of contact on a 3-point shot at the buzzer. If they blow the whistle on that one, if Dame hits 3 free throws, game goes to overtime. But was not the case. And, while it did say that Anfernee shouldn't have gotten the and one in that 2-minute report, it also did say that Toumani did not foul Dame to a level to where the foul should have been called. So great defense there, right? Basically straddling the line without going over it, which is exactly where you want to be as a defender. So a really good game for Toumani, a really good run for Toumani right now. And again, a guy who, I think, between his getting accustomed to the game, working on his offensive game, working on his finishing, and just kind of filling out more as an adult. That was actually, since it lost, one of the things that Toumani talked about last season, when he did get that rib broken and that kidney lacerated, he said that he'd been losing too much weight during the season because of the way he was playing and how much he was playing and kind of moving around the court. And he's noticeably bigger this season, like he just has put on some weight, put on some bulk, and it really seems to be helping him out there. So let's go ahead and hear from Toumani Camara after practice in Milwaukee a few days ago. When we're on the road and there's holidays and it's the new year, it's really hard to remember what day of the week it is. It is Sunday, but I don't recall what 2 days ago was. I guess that would have been Friday. Either way, here's Toumani Camara after practice in Milwaukee discussing his play this season, what he's liked out of the team, what he's still working on, and a little bit of charge talk as well. Take it away, Toumani. All right, here with Toumani Camara after practice in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So first off, Toumani, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Not so bad. Yeah, thank you for asking. How was your holiday?
It was pretty good, pretty busy. I had my family and my girlfriend's family in town, but it's been a good time, man. It was very resourceful.
Was that the first time you'd done that? I imagine your rookie season, maybe having people around for the holidays, maybe a little bit tough, but now you're a little established, I imagine you maybe can do that.
No, I did it last year also. It's very important for me to spend time with the family around that time, around Christmas time. Like I said, it's very resourceful for my mental and everything. So yeah, I think it's crucial.
What were holidays like for you as a kid?
It was the best time of the year. Still is the best time of the year. There's nothing like the Christmas spirit to me when it's getting a little bit cold and you see the Christmas lights and the spirit is just different. Everybody kind of in a different mood. So it's always been a very positive thing.
Is there like a Belgian Christmas thing? Like, is there like a thing that like is like specific to Belgium and Christmas?
I don't know if it's a Belgium thing, but the way I grew up, I was only celebrating Saint Nicholas, which is before Christmas Day out here. It's a little bit early. I think it's like maybe like December 13 or something like that, around that time. And I just always celebrate that. And then Christmas Day was more like a family, spending time with the family.
Sure. I'm learning all kinds of stuff for Toumani. This is good stuff. So, to get to basketball, what have been your thoughts on the season so far?
I think we all got better. We're a very young team. We're still trying to learn from one another. But I think we did a lot of positive things. We have up and downs like always, but it's just, I think our resilience and our togetherness is better this year.
Absolutely. How do you think that's paid off? It seems like, some games it goes pretty well, some games not as much. But it feels, or it sounds at least, like you feel like you guys are a tougher group this year than you were last year.
Yeah, I feel like last year, to me, I feel like we were chasing almost to get 10 wins at some point.
Yeah.
And out here, from the way we started the season, I feel like we knew right away that we were going to be able to get there, to have a better season for sure than last year. It's just step by step, man. We just got to stay focused on the process and just very confident in the guys that we have around for sure.
Where do you think you've grown the most since, I would say, last season?
I would say my maturity and my poise and my understanding of basketball. I think my shooting also got a little bit better, my decision making. I feel like overall, I feel like I'm just a better basketball player, but still a lot of room to grow though.
When you talk about decision making, what does that mean to you in terms of your game?
Watching film and be able to understand when to make the right read, play off two more, not play off one so you don't really run into charge or make turnovers, make bad passes. Just keep on watching film and learning how to make the right read at the right time.
You said you still have plenty of room to grow. Where do you feel like some of the main areas that you'd like to see yourself improve at?
Well, I think my finishing needs to get better. Be able to finish at the rim at a higher rate. Be able to draw fouls and keep on being more efficient with my shooting and keep on making the right plays without making turnovers.
Well, yeah, in that Laker game, too, you had a couple dunk attempts at least. It seems like you're trying to finish at the rim at least better, or at least more aggressively at least.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like sometimes I can get caught up in just trying to make the next play and not really be as aggressive on the driving the basket and stuff like that. So I think it's an emphasis that I'm trying to do right now.
I know I talked to you a lot about taking charges, but I just wanted to ask you about it again because you are, once again, the league leader. Do you feel like opposing players recognize that now, or do you feel teams playing you differently, particularly obviously when they're driving on you, or is that something where you just feel like you're in the right place at the right time?
I think it's definitely something that's being talked about in pregame. I feel like every NBA team scout every game that the opponent plays against. So I know for sure that every team probably knows that I lead the league in charge right now, but it goes both ways. Sometimes the games go so fast you don't have time to read it. So it's just a read on both sides, you know. But yeah, I think it's something that every team knows for sure.
There you go, Toumani Camara. As I said, a little bit shorter than it would have been otherwise because I lost half of it to the iPhone. But really good stuff there from Toumani, and really like the way that he's playing right now. Just a you figure a guy who's a long-term piece for the Trailblazers, and I don't know exactly at what point in time they can start kind of negotiating going forward about kind of what Toumani's next deal might be, but a guy who obviously is a winning player just in his second season, and a guy who you're going to want to have on your team for a long time. And I know that Toumani while the trade season's getting going. Obviously, you got the stuff going on in Miami. Quite a few teams are, I think, looking to improve, or at least, teams that have maybe not done what they thought they were going to do this season, maybe looking to make some deals as well. And anytime you see Toumani Camara kind of thrown into a deal, I'm always like, come on, man, like that's not happening. Like there is simply no universe in which Toumani is going anywhere. The Blazers got him obviously in that deal from the Phoenix Suns, and I think. That deal and getting Deni, I think really kind of shows some of the stuff they've been emphasizing or that they value as a front office. And I think both of those deals have been phenomenal, have really paid off for the Trailblazers. And Teal said they're not looking to undo at this point. Those guys are going to be in Portland for some time. And I think, they're two guys who you feel really good about their play going forward and what they're going to be able to do for you going forward on both sides of the ball. I mean, Deni already a very talented offensive player and really kind of just scratching the surface of what he's able to do. And Deni, and Toumani, a guy who, again, really just kind of figuring out who he is as a basketball player and building his confidence and really getting to a point where, I think he recognizes that, even as a second round pick, a guy who probably, has a lot more room to grow in the NBA and could go from just being a guy. And then again, this is something we talked about in the interview, you're not going to be able to hear, is that the notion of being a 3-and-D guy. And, while that's not limiting and, every team wants those guys, I think if the assumption was Toumani's kind of best case as a player is just as a very good 3-and-D player, which would be a very good player, don't get me wrong, I think at this point, you have to reevaluate kind of what you think Toumani Camara can do as a professional, because and I'm including myself in that, seeing Toumani last year, it seems like this is going to be a really good 3-and-D guy for you. I think it's very possible that Toumani's game expands upon that. I think he's got more of an offensive game than just being a 3-point corner shooter. I think as his handle gets a little tighter, I think you're probably going to maybe see him able to do some more stuff in the paint, some more dribble drive, maybe develop a little bit of a mid-range game as well. I think that, again, the idea that he's a defender who's going to be able to hit the open shot, he is going to be those things and is one of those things right now. I just think that he's maybe got a bit more to him than just being a guy who's kind of a lockdown defender who also can hit the outside shot, which, again, is very valuable in the NBA. You need those guys. It just seems to me that Toumani is maybe a little bit better than that. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Briefcase. Thank you so much for joining me, as always. Probably get back to you once we get back to Portland, but who's to say, maybe something happens here on the road, we'll get another edition in. But until then, thank you so much. Check out all of our podcasts on the Trailblazers Audio Network. You got The Briefcase, you got Blazers Balcony with Brooke Olzendam, a new episode coming this week, and Section 113 with Travis and Michael. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Like us and subscribe on YouTube as well. And we will talk to you soon. I'm Casey Holdahl. You've been watching The Briefcase presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Go Blazers.